across the entire Salesforce ecosystem to drive business intelligence and efficiency, yada, yada. And like most tech companies, they're reinventing themselves as an AI-first enterprise. But is that easier said than done? Salesforce is a behemoth, millions, maybe billions of lines of legacy code, lots of random, unscalable, one-off customizations across their 150,000 plus businesses that use Salesforce. And somehow they're going to flip the AI switch, which got us thinking, did Salesforce users get enough AI last week? Or is Salesforce just too big and too slow to pivot to AI in a meaningful way? Will actual AI-first startups steal the market? Today on Dumb Money, how AI could kill this $250 billion company.
This is Dumb Money Live.
Hey there, Dave here, along with Chris and Jordan. We are Dumb Money. Welcome to Dumb Money Live. My job to remind you about the like button. Your job is to smash it. Take a second. Let the almighty algo know that we're on. At some point, AI is going to take over. We won't need to tap a button anymore. But for now, I think it still helps the channel, maybe. Chris, Jordan, we did touch on this last week in our show about Palantir, but there is this idea that I don't think investors have thought through yet, that while AI is launching us into this new uncharted territory, which, Chris, you call a new world order, it literally changes everything about everything, improving efficiencies, the way we think about all the stuff that humans do for work. But what happens to those existing, highly successful incumbent companies when the thing that they spent decades building can be reconstructed in a better, smarter, AI-first way overnight and optimized for outcomes instead of just giving humans a better tool to do their jobs better? I don't think there's a better example of an incumbent that could be killed by AI than Salesforce. They're a dinosaur.
Yeah. I had lunch this last week with the guy John Carmack, the guy that created Doom, and he was the CTO at Oculus. It was the craziest 2.5-hour conversation about AI. That he had a really interesting insight and a prediction. I'm not going to get into now because it's not related to Salesforce. By the end of the episode, remind me, and I want to talk about that a bit. But I think related to this specifically, Salesforce and all of these SaaS companies, because there's like 24 of them that would be impacted. You know, Mark Andreessen had that 2011 quote that went viral, and it was software. What is it? I have it right here. Software is eating the world, Mark Andreessen said in 2011.
Yeah.
But more recently,
I feel like AI is going to eat the software.
Yeah, well, that's what NVIDIA's Jensen said. More recently, he said software is eating the world, but AI is going to eat software. So
where it used to be a strength to be a big SaaS company like Salesforce, it now, I mean, with development just getting cheaper and faster for startups, there's less of a moat. Now we do, Salesforce is so entrenched in these companies, it's kind of hard to unwind them. But we saw Klarna ditch Salesforce and Workday, and they could be like leading the way for a new way to think about your business. Do you actually need this legacy company that you've been working with when you already have data? And if there's a better way to just connect that data, Palantir style, like imagine Palantir with a CRM app.
Well, by the way, this conversation today applies to Palantir as well. Okay, so I said this yesterday on the show that you were watching with Amit. I think
which was good, by the way. If you missed it, it's during his live stream. Fast forward about an hour until you see Chris. It's really good.
We went on for like an hour and a half. It was a long show.
I know, I had to listen at 1.5 speed, which I normally don't do, but I just couldn't get through it.
I just so much to say. I just want to say that this does eventually impact Palantir, not as quickly as it would theoretically impact companies like Workday and Salesforce and HubSpot and others. But there is a point where there's this kind of overriding thesis that pure AI kind of scientists have, that at some point in the next decade or so, you would go straight to the large language model companies. Like you would go straight to OpenAI. In fact, I want to read a paragraph. I forget who said this, but I think it was probably the most interesting perspective I've seen on that take. And what this person said was, it's not that customers will start unplugging Salesforce and buy sales software from AI upstarts. How it starts is, I'm keeping Salesforce, but I'm going to buy something from an AI native company because I can do things I cannot with Salesforce AI, because Salesforce has their own AI division, obviously, that they're going all in on. And then 5 years from now, we might have the conversations about some new AI native CRM that is literally built on top of OpenAI. So
Yeah.
that's where the mindset is of people that are kind of in that AI scientist mode right now. But practically, is that going to happen in the next 1 to 2 years? Probably not. Will you hear about a few other companies doing what? What's the name of that company, the finance company, Dave, that just did this?
Klarna.
Yeah, Klarna. Will
Yeah.
we hear about more companies like that? I think we'll hear about a few of them. I don't think we're going to hear about a lot of them that are that large doing that in anytime soon, because you know
And,
why, Dave?
and I
They're
also don't think a lot of them, even if they do it, they're not going to like publicly say, "Hey, we've just rewired our entire back end," because that might scare Wall Street.
And it did scare it did. Now Klarna is going public, and people are saying that a big part of why they did that is, one, to get their costs down and to get closer to profitability. They're not afraid of like scaring Wall Street, but there are publicly traded companies I think would be afraid of doing anything that large scale. But I think there's another take that's even more interesting, which is that companies won't, but individuals at the companies will, because
Yeah.
companies have a tremendous amount of risk, right? So they can't really make those big moves easily. We know that. We've all
Yeah.
worked at big companies, but
But a little
individuals.
a division, a VP level person, or even a director of a smaller team can say, "Hey, we're going to try out this. It's not a corporate mandate, but it's going to help us do our jobs better. Let's give it a shot."
And they could just start using it on the side the same way that so many people at large enterprise companies the last year and a half have started using LLMs, ChatGPT to actually write their letters, right? To do a lot of their business correspondence. They're using all types of AI widgets and meetings that are not affiliated with the company that they work for. And if over time you start to see that adoption of people utilizing those tools and not using the incumbent tools, you're going to say, why are we paying all this money when our employees are using these things? Now, there's there's
Which is,
another
by the way, that's
level.
how kind of Slack took off. I feel like most companies didn't say, "Hey, let's make a relationship with Slack." No, employees were like, "This is a great way to communicate. This is way better than walking across the office or picking up my phone and calling another desk." It just that was a natural rollout because that's what made their jobs and lives easier.
But Dave, and Jordan, I want to get your take because you're the most qualified out of us to really understand this. But the take that I find even more fascinating than that is, beyond employees taking those risks, because there's not a lot of risks there. There's two other levels to this. The next level are startups. Startups have even less risk than human employees, because startups just don't care about anything. They don't have much money. There's not a lot for them to risk doing things. So they're happy to use like bleeding edge, free or next to free AI native tools, right, to do these things. And even if they're not done in in a way that's 100% protective and legal, right? Because like a lot of these new tools are doing things with content and information that might not be above board. There might be gray areas. So I think if you're a startup in the next couple of years, you're probably resistant going down a road of Salesforce as opposed to the dozens and dozens of AI native companies that are going to be really cheap, really cool. That as a founder, as a young startup founder, you're going to want to try because you think they might be better and obviously cheaper. But then there's
Yeah.
another level beyond that. And this is the last thing, okay? I promise. But the next level is this whole concept of AI agents, which, by the way, Salesforce is going down this road with their internal AI. But if we get to a point, and we might not be that far off, where we all have many AI agents for each human, then your AI agents will kind of choose the tool that they want to use without you even knowing, right? So there might become an ecosystem of tools that your AI agent might utilize to do that sort of work for you. That might be more native and might just be pure AI, right? So, and I hate using that word. I know Jordan hates it when I use that word, but you know what I mean, right? So at that point, they're just like those companies, those SaaS companies will just organically fall apart because the world's AI agents have no need. They will do the thing that has the least amount of friction. They
Yeah.
will figure out ways to get things done in terms of CRM that doesn't require legacy CRM software. So I know this is hard for us to mentally process because things are moving so quickly, but the market at some point before this actually happens might realize that it is going to happen and it's unstoppable, and it will start to reflect in the the theoretical multiple compression of all these SaaS companies like Salesforce. But I'll let Jordan talk, but I want to tell the other side of the story, which is long Salesforce after we get done beating up on how bad this can end for these companies. So Jordan, does all that make, am I crazy in everything that I just said? Or like, is that
I don't know. I
correct?
just think about it. I think about it a little bit differently in that I think part of what you were saying was that, Salesforce is going to be around for a while. There are large organizations that have so much data embedded into the Salesforce platform that what I think will happen is that you will have AI companies that come up that want to be Salesforce adjacent. So they'll want to utilize that ecosystem to their benefit, right? Because they don't have to go and rebuild everything in Salesforce. They can just work on building an AI agent that sits outside of Salesforce, but uses the data, uses maybe some of the communications protocol, uses some of the management dashboards that Salesforce provides to then grow their business. And I think that that's one way to attack it. I think the other one that you mentioned was that there will obviously be new AI-centered CRMs that come about. That newer startups aren't going to go the CRM or the Salesforce route. They'll go with something a little less heavy-handed, right?
Yeah.
They can work a little bit easier for a smaller team. But yeah, I do think that this spells trouble for Salesforce. But what I think Salesforce should be doing is watching all of these companies that interact with their platform very closely to figure out, do we need to acquire? Do we need to rebuild whatever these people are offering on top of our own platform to offer for our customers to make sure that they can survive?
And Jordan,
Obviously,
that's I want to ask you about that because you've built software.
yeah.
That's what you do. You know better than anyone that Salesforce was kind of built as this in a text-based world. They were a glorified filing cabinet and database, but now we're moving into the ability for AI to ingest all sorts of different things, like listen to a phone call and transcribe and come up with key points and like uh, search social media and look at competitive data and market data and like pull all this stuff together. How hard is it for Salesforce to take what they built, which is this like text first, list based database kind of structure, and then is it a bunch of modules that are AI
Yeah, look, I
enhanced,
don't think
or
there's
can they
anything
do the whole
wrong.
thing?
So there's this idea that, okay, well, do we need a relational database or not? I think at the end of the day, you're storing data. The engineers can handle however that data is organized, and that I think they've always wanted to have, a source of multimodal communication to where they have all the text messages, they have all the emails, and then now that you can have phone calls transcribed, they want the transcription of the phone call. I think, of course, they want all that data, and I think Salesforce specific. I keep saying CRM. or ticker, but I think Salesforce specifically would love to be able to handle all of that data and then have something then process it. I don't really think it matters how they've stored data in the past versus what they store it in the future. I think that their organization, their engineering organization is big enough to be able to handle any of those things. So I don't think it's a problem from that standpoint. It's just, will they be able to innovate with the way that people are going to use AI? I think the data storage and the data processing and handling, I don't see any problem there for a Salesforce.
But how much of their platform gets thrown away? How much of their user interface, the experience that salespeople use every day, changes? Like, is it like, to me, it's like, it might be easier just to start over and get a company that does everything right out of the box instead of waiting for Salesforce to catch up.
Yeah, Dave, the Salesforce UI UX interface is so bad. Like I said, I've never met a. I spent my career in sales. I dreaded even touching it. It was the worst, the absolute worst.
Yeah.
It was.
I've literally never seen it, because the only company that we started to implement Salesforce, I left the company before we even finished the implementation. So I have no idea how it worked out at OMG.
Two years. It takes 2 years, dude. Usually,
Yeah,
I was there exactly 2 years, and it was still not done.
The problem with Salesforce is that it can do everything, and so that it does nothing, right? And so you have to finagle it to get it to do what you want it to do, and how you.
Now, are they going to? They need to be working on like an AI onboarding that just does the finagling for you, so that all that 2-year process gets condensed down to like a week.
Right. But I think that's the thing, right? So that they are built for enterprise, and that, like we've said, startups, small teams, it's always going to be easier to find some new tool, some new startup that's going to do things in a more simplified manner. But an AT&T or like any sort of major Fortune 500 company, they've got different concerns over managing all of this data.
Did you guys read the John Mulaney quote? They hired him for Dreamforce, which is the large Salesforce annual conference, 45,000 attendees, all their partners, all their clients, employees.
Now, is there video of his? He did a stand-up routine.
I think
Seth Meyers did last year's.
I saw some video, but I thought, like, I read the transcript of what he said. He did the closing keynote, and he's supposed to be really funny, and all he did was like he completely ripped all the people that were there. It was I pulled it last night. I should have saved it. I'll there's one paragraph that I thought was so great. Oh, here it is. No, I guess there's a lot of different transcript cuts. I thought they were all the same. But I'd advise people to go on and look at it. But basically,
I think what I read, Seth Meyers also did kind of a roasting of the people who attend a conference for Salesforce, the Dreamforce conference.
Well, no, I found the paragraph. I want to read this. This is so funny. He basically says, he goes, "What's important here is that we're looking for solutions," he says sarcastically. "And in looking for solutions, what we're really after is insights, which then leads to success. Now start prepping the humans for robots." Some of the vaguest language ever devised has been used here in the last 3 days, he continued. The fact that there are 45,000 trailblazers here couldn't devalue the title any more. I mean, that just represents everything that I would naturally think is the state of being at a Salesforce conference in 2024, right? And I actually spent
does that change what actual salespeople do in 2028? Because I just see the whole role changing. I see that AI will be able to do so much of it. And there was an article that I think you sent, Chris, about how the whole pricing model for SaaS, which is a pay per user, pay per seat kind of thing, could change to be, I think, a way more interesting pricing model where it's a pay per outcome, where the software doesn't charge you anything to use the software, but then takes a cut of the deals that it can close for you.
That was put out by what is it like?
A16Z and recent
Yeah,
performance.
and that was an incredible paper. If any of you guys watching the show today want to go deep on this, read a white paper called "Death of a Salesforce: Why AI will transform the next generation of sales tech." It is fascinating. But I read, you know, that company Glass Ceiling, which is like where all the employees leave their reviews. I always
Glassdoor.
Glassdoor, excuse me, Glassdoor.
Glass
That was
Ceiling is a different company.
okay. So,
I don't
oh man. So all right. So I always read whenever I'm doing my deep dives. I will always spend maybe half an hour reading Glassdoor reviews. I read the most eloquent employee review of Salesforce from an employee that had been there for 9 years and just loved the company, but had gotten to a point where he said they were at a tipping point, and it was really eloquently written. He basically said that they started to pull in some real heavy hitter salespeople from competing companies, like the best of the best of the best. So they were recruiting people with the deepest uh, networks of, um, into enterprise company sales. And he said this is definitely going to help the company generate huge sales, but over time it will completely corrupt the culture of the company. And it was no longer, they were no longer withholding the mission that they've had, in the prior decade. And I read this and I went, oh boy, if that's the case, maybe they're going to have a strong next few years. And then I realized the company responded to it, and that note was 10 years ago. That was 2014 that he wrote that. And that was a real moment for me, because I was like, dude, this guy was saying that they were hitting, because Salesforce was started in 1999, right? And this is 15 years in. He thought that they were at the tipping point, but it was likely to generate more revenue, which it obviously did for Salesforce,
Mhm.
but would start the slow erosion of that company. And everything I read since then has pointed to the fact that it really has become one of these huge, what we think of, right? When a company just has a hard time moving and changing. Now, obviously, Salesforce has been aggressive with acquisitions. They're acquiring more companies now than they've ever acquired, to bolt on and to say, we can do this and we can do this.
But that gets
But
messy too.
that
It
gets,
does get messy. It
yeah,
does get messy. And I don't know how to solve it for a Salesforce, because I feel like they almost have to, right?
yeah.
To stay relevant.
But there was one line in here that the AI kind of summed up of all the recent Glassdoor reviews that relates to the current state of Salesforce, which looks like a near-term positive for the company. And a lot of the people that have long thesis on Salesforce right now are all focused on their profitability, because it looks like they are making moves to generate more cash flow over the next couple of years and generate more income to their bottom line. It says recent layoffs mostly affected very talented folks, but the majority of them were from San Francisco to cut down the cost. And that came from 279 different reviews. Bad managers thrive, creating terrible and deep differences between departments and culture, micromanagement, direct reports, et cetera, et cetera. People like to bitch on these sites. But it does look like there are levers that Salesforce has over the next so many quarters to actually improve their bottom line. And that's why I think they've been getting some upgrades and some positive speak from Wall
Yeah, they
Street
have.
analysts.
Mhm.
Correct.
But their top line, which is my big concern, that growth has slowed. I think it was like 16% a couple quarters ago. And this
Yeah.
quarter that they just announced was 8%. And the one thing that worries me more than anything else for Salesforce is the fact that I want to say 40, I just looked this up, 49% of Salesforce's customers are small business with fewer than 50 employees. Now that's interesting because that I think is the market or
That is the
AI
market.
tools. These
You froze there, Chris.
cheaper tool guys.
Chris, you need to upgrade your Wi-Fi.
I
Or
do.
he is just an AI agent of himself right now. I can't tell.
Yeah. So I don't think they're going to lose any of their large customers anytime soon. They might lose one or two more, but it's gaining new customers
Yeah.
in terms of the startups. Startups, I think are going to be reluctant to utilize Salesforce over the next couple of years with all the competition
Yeah, could you
and all.
imagine being a startup and thinking, "Oh, we really need to use Salesforce"? I that just doesn't jive
And
at all.
Jordan, this is where I think it really starts. The
Right.
fact that we have 20
It is where
years.
it starts. It is where it starts, and that was my point earlier. Is that I think that they've got runway, and that they're going to continue to be a large behemoth because you're going to continue to have these major corporations that use them, public and private, but the
But they
new
might have
customer
peaked as far
growth
as
is
getting
not going to be
these.
there.
Yeah, the
But
new customers.
no,
And think about it. The people who in 1999 were implementing them, they were like at the peak of their career, and now they're retiring, right? And so there's
um,
a new generation of younger people picking out which software they're going to go with. And are you going to go with this old dog that is trying to add new tricks? Are you going to like, I don't know.
Well, I think, and also startups have a different priority than a mega corporation, right? A mega corporation wants to have control over their data. To a startup, they just want to make sales, right? So they're going to try to figure out the thing that they can use that's going to drive their sales efficiency the most. And I doubt that's CRM, or I doubt
but
it's Salesforce.
So
there's
Chris,
pro- what
th-
there's probably nothing that matters more for the future of Salesforce than the fact that we have 20 years of employees that hate using Salesforce. And when they go to work at another company as a mid-level or high-level manager and they voice their opinion about what CRM software that startup is going to utilize, they're like probably aggressively going to vote to not use Salesforce and to use one of these alternative pure AI tools because
Yeah.
nobody likes Salesforce. Nobody wants to get back in bed with that type of company. It is a miserable experience having to onboard that type of platform and then use it as part of your daily life at a company. And if there's an alternative, people don't want to use Salesforce. Nobody likes Salesforce. And that has to matter at some point. At some point, that has to be the thing that brings this company down. Like out of all the other
yeah.
things, the fact that when all other alternatives become so numerous, right, which AI will bring, at some point people are going to want to not use Salesforce and start utilizing other tools.
So for
But it's
me,
a
I
matter of
don't
when.
think that there's a stock play here because I feel like Salesforce is going to linger around for years, and who knows whether or not their evolution into AI is too little too late, or if it works and they are adaptable enough, and adding AI features keeps them relevant. I don't see any like shorter term social arb play here. What about you, Chris?
This is one of those things. I you know I've said before, I regret not checking back in on Palantir every 3 to 6 months and doing more research. And if I was doing that, I would have realized about, I would say 3 quarters ago, maybe 4 quarters ago, that they were starting to gain major traction in the commercial sector. And I would have initiated my Palantir position probably 6 months earlier than I ultimately did. I think the opposite here. I want to check in on Salesforce every 3 to 6 months to kind of just assess the CRM market and AI to determine at what point I start to short that company. It's not today for me. Although I would potentially, uh, employ like a long short strategy on a software company that I feel is less likely to be impacted by this transition to AI in the near future, like Palantir on the long side, and a company like Salesforce that I felt if this starts to happen, they are going to get hit first. Workday is going to get hit first. HubSpot is going to get hit first. There's a dozen or two
And
dozen
even
other
like
companies.
Zendesk and those type of companies.
Yeah. So what I would do if I wanted to defray my risk of being levered in a company like Palantir, maybe I go ultra long Palantir and ultra short uh a company, companies
Yeah.
like Salesforce. I'm not ready to do that today,
Yeah, and I
but
feel like Salesforce may not be the right one, but I think that there is one. We just have to find it that
I
is more subject to volatility in the shorter term because AI can replace them. And I think the way to look what Salesforce does is makes a tool to make someone's job better and easier, and that basically could be replaced by the computer just doing it all for you instead of
I
making a
don't even
tool for you.
think it's I think when these companies start to get hit, they'll all get hit. And so you maybe just kind of I would short a basket of these legacy CRM companies. If you look at the companies that got hit first and are completely devastated right now due to the shift towards AI, it's the ed tech companies. We talked a little bit about this earlier this year when it started to happen. But some of these ed tech companies are down 90% because people are moving to AI and they are just getting destroyed. I forget the name, like Chug, for example.
Yeah.
Chug is down like
Chegg.
90% due to AI. And there's a bunch of others. You know what I was shocked to learn? I was looking at all these companies trying to assess which ones were most likely to get impacted by the shift. Duolingo is doing so well right now, surprisingly. And the reason why, I don't know how I missed this, guys. I guess they have one of the most viral, like TikTok social campaigns out of any company. Duolingo does. They have their Duolingo character and they kind of make fun of people and they put pressure on Duolingo users that are not engaging with the app in like a fun way. That company, who would have known? Like Duolingo, look at their stock chart. Look at
Yeah.
them. I mean, they are crushing it. Absolutely crushing it. But I do think at some point in time, my younger brother just told me that he got on, I guess, what is it? AI voice? Is it Google voice or is it ChatGPT voice that just came out this week? And it will let you do an hour a day, basically, right? And it will do language with you. It will go, like, if you're learning a language, you can just start practicing the language with it. Oh, it's called Advanced Voice by Chat GPT. He said it was one of the coolest technology breakthroughs he's ever witnessed. I haven't
Huh.
gotten on it yet,
I haven't
but
done that.
stuff like that could really rock the world of some of these more legacy language companies that, by the way, they're all utilizing AI as well. But when you have native AI tools like this that just kind of let you do it as part of the thing you're already paying for, do you then want to go out and pay an extra so much a month for this other language tool? I don't know. These are conversations that every investor needs to be having right now. Because I will tell you this, guys, there is a point in time, and I feel strongly that it's in the next 2 years. I don't know if it's in the next 6 months, the next 12 months, 18 months, but I feel that it has to be in the next 2 years when a lot of these companies are going to get rocked the same way that Chug got rocked by the transition to AI. And figuring out which of these companies is going to get hit first and having a strategy to short them well in advance of it happening so you're not reading about it in the news. So you're preparing yourselves prior to every earnings. Is this the quarter? Is this the quarter? You
Yeah,
have
That's
to
the
have a
Chegg
prepared
chart
mind.
we're looking at there, and it just fell apart in the last few quarters.
And they attributed it to AI.
Mhm.
They just came right out and they said that's what it is. Like that's what it is. If you're a kid right now, because think about who's embracing AI faster than anyone in the world. It's really, really young kids who are trying to circumvent learning, right? Or getting their homework done, or help with a test, or help with homework or a paper or an essay, or help them learn something, in a new way.
Or
Uh,
write their paper for them.
or write their paper for them, right? But
Or
it's a start.
summarize the articles that Chris sent me so that I don't have to read them all and I just get bullet points.
By the way, I didn't send you this other one because it was an hour and a half podcast that I listened to while I was reading all those
Oh, I
articles.
would have transcribed it and summarized it.
But if anyone else wants to go deep, there's another video called "Are AI Agents the End of SaaS" by Janelle Tang, who used to work at Salesforce. And again, that's another interesting one. If you want to spend your whole week like just obsessing over this topic. By the way, I don't have an easy answer here. Like I don't have a trade right now today, but I am going to check in every 2 to 3 months on all these SaaS companies and check out the competition, try to assess the degree to which companies or individuals are rapidly moving to these competitive AI centric, startups.
Yeah.
And, you know, I hope I don't miss the window because it's going to be an incredible opportunity to short an entire. I mean, how big is this industry, Jordan? Collectively, we're talking about $1 trillion plus industry sector. I mean, Salesforce is a $260 billion
Well,
company.
they're the 500-pound gorilla for sure.
Yeah, but there are others. It's not just Salesforce. You add them up, and it's well
Yeah.
over $1
Oh,
trillion
yeah.
of market valuation in these incumbents. It's crazy. By the way, people ripping on Palantir for being an $80 billion company that's essentially really centric to AI. That's still at risk at some point, but I'm
What's a
just
risk?
shocked.
The 30 times sales valuation right now.
Oh,
It's pretty tough.
Salesforce?
No, I'm talking about Palantir. Just the valuation's tough right now. It's a tough valuation.
Yeah, yeah. Listen, but you do realize that most of Palantir's earnings, Jordan, come from interest on their cash hoard. They have like a $5 billion cash hoard, so they're not even really at the point where they're generating real income yet. So I've said this so many times. It's hard to take a PE seriously on a company
I'm
that
not
has
talking about the PE. I'm talking price to sales, but
price is fine, price to sales, but all right,
30 price to sales is tough. 3 is kind of the industry average.
I get it. I get it. But again, they are so early. They're so early in their journey, right? So I get it though. It's certainly the knock on Palantir. It seems to be the only knock on Palantir right now. If you
That's
start
the
to,
only knock. I mean, obviously it's a great company.
yeah. Okay, so I want to talk about John Carmack, who's founded the video game, a lot of video games, but like Doom, and worked on Oculus for a long time. I had this lunch with him this last week, and he had previously, I think, said that there was a 50-50 shot of us hitting singularity by 2030. And he's now like a pure AI scientist. He's just working on really, really tough problems in AI to move it forward. And me and another guy asked him like, where are you right now with that prediction? Has it changed? And he said it's notched up a little bit. He put it in this guy's talks he's so smart. He talks smart. Like his voice is smart, right? Like he's like straight out of central casting. You're like, you
Yeah.
really have
Wait,
to zone in.
he's not British though. That's the only smart
No,
voice.
no. He is nerd smart. Like not he said like in a really calculated way. He said that he's notched it up to a 65% chance of singularity by 2030. Also, the problem with AI that he's working on right now and others is that the training data sets have become so large that there are some issues with the AI being able to retain all of that memory and being able to properly access all of that training data appropriately for the task in front of it. At least that's me trying to interpret what he said. He said it's definitely a fixable problem, but that seems to be like a hurdle right now for AI. Is yes, it has access to all of this information, all of this data, but it doesn't necessarily always know exactly what data point to go to connect the dots right now
Yeah,
for
the argument is that it's not AI. At least the LLMs are not. That the LLMs, they're language models, but they're not. They're not intelligent. They're. I've heard them described as like a lossy compression of the internet, basically, so that um, they've summarized as much as they can and found as many patterns as they can in the data that they've been fed, but they've lost information along the way. And, depending on what size of model you want to run, it will lose more and more information.
that's pretty much what he was saying, Jordan.
Yeah.
And I found that to be interesting. I did like the fact that he thought it was a fixable problem that they're in the process of working on. Have you guys played around yet with GPT? I think it's like was it 4.0, the new one yet?
Yeah, yeah.
Um, I have as well, and I have to say, while not perfect, it it has resolved a bunch of annoying issues I had with ChatGPT prior to it. Like
Yeah. No,
it can.
it doesn't like hesitate to give you information as much, and it doesn't seem to hallucinate at all anymore. And like I feel like they've just really gotten to a way better point where you can you can more you can rely on it more, where before it was like, okay, I got to fact check what it told me.
Also, like I have a query. This is going to seem obnoxious to you, but I have a query that I have been processing through ChatGPT since the first week it came out because it's niche intelligence that I have the answer to because I actually have a vested interest in this answer and it getting it right. But I think it's a very difficult thing
Are
for
you searching for
AI.
yourself again?
Yes. So
Oh, really?
what yeah, yes, yes. So
Who
so
is
so
Chris Camillo?
so no, it's not that. So it's all right. Obviously, I've been going through this audit process for 17 years with my investment returns, and I'm trying to get to 20 years of 70% annualized returns, right? Like ROI on my investment returns. And, I've been written about in books and tons of articles and stuff like that that have all cited that information.
Mm-hmm.
And it's something that I'm proud of. And it's like I'm a competitive person. It's like my little chess game with every other investor in the world to see if I can continue to generate these returns. And if so, who's my competition? Like who has audited returns over 10 years long that have exceeded mine, right? And I'm always curious about that. So obviously there's been books, there's been articles. So I always go back to ChatGPT and I go, hey, what investors, institutional, professional, or retail investors, have generated the highest annualized returns that have been cited either by a book, a national publication, any type of recognized media, right? Like, can you just sort them for me, the top 20? And it always gets it wrong. It always goes to the most obvious, and sometimes it starts citing like Warren Buffett, who doesn't
Yeah,
even have like a real track record that's been so
yeah.
it kind of goes to the names that you hear all the time of like good
It
investor
doesn't really
names.
understand the question of what you're trying to get at, which is very specific, like an audited return trail on an
It just has to
individual
be
or fund
it's not
manager.
that complicated. It just has to be cited in recognized media with over a 10-year track record, and I want to know exactly what the annualized returns are for that individual. I want to know where it was cited. And so this is the first version, this GPT 4.0, that when I was able to ask the question perfectly, it cited the top 20 investors throughout history, and it actually had me at number one, which was really cool. But I still had to like be so precise in the way that I was like, I want to make sure that you're including all of the books,
Yeah.
including like
But did you
including
have to like teach it like what about this person? What about this person? Because
so
I
Dave,
feel like when you ask ChatGPT something and then you give it a little bit, oh well, I'm more curious about like, can you tell me how this person did?
no, I didn't name any person, but what it did do is it like pulled a couple investors from the original Market Wizards book, but it
Mm-hmm.
didn't pull anyone from Unknown Market Wizards, which is the most recent one.
Recent, yeah.
But I was like, it also
Is
didn't
there any
pull
more
like
recent information that as your follow-up question?
well, interestingly, it had access to the Business Insider audit that was done on me, but it didn't hit it. It didn't catch it the first time. And then when I had to tell it, make sure you include every publication like Business Insider, Wall Street Journal, all
Yeah.
the Market Wizards books, including Unknown Market Wizards. So I had
Oh
to
yeah, yeah.
actually feed it the source
You
data
had
that
to
I
feed
wanted
it
to
the
make sure to
answer so
include.
that it could find the answer.
No, I had to
That will
feed
get
it
better.
no, I had to feed it the training data. Make sure you're including this in your research, right? But
Yeah.
that was the only hole that it had. So what I want out of the next version, or the version that will really impress me, and by the way, this is just one use case that I happen to be personally attached to. So like it's my way of testing the degree of accuracy and capability of artificial intelligence, at least in
Yeah.
terms of ChatGPT. But when it gets that answer right, without me having to say, make sure you include all these books specifically and all of these publications specifically,
Yeah. The
I
most
think
simple
that would be
version of that
amazing.
question just being give me a sorted list of the best returns from an individual investor.
Or the
And
bet,
that's it.
just
I'm not going to
investment.
tell you about publications. I'm not going to tell you anything else. Once it gets to that point, you know you've reached general artificial research intelligence.
Yeah, yeah, and listen, I'm sure there's a million ways that people can ask different questions that would be similar like to that. And I think I would encourage everyone to find one question that you are just going to ask every version of this, and then for yourself, you can determine how good AI is actually getting, and not have to like read articles or like watch podcasts about other people telling you how good it is. Because like I don't trust anyone. I want to actually see it live, see it produce something that is hard, that I know is a difficult question, and see how much better it gets with each release. Anyway, I just think that's something that every single individual should do. That you should pick something that you know a lot about, like that's in your field, and assess the degree that these language models can actually, or even going beyond the language models, right? The degree that they can actually perform. I just, it's fun for me to just see it firsthand like that.
All right. So question from the audience. Hey, Chris, what happened to Wayne Newman from the most recent book?
Um,
He was apparently in Unknown Market Wizards from Texas. You
I
know
don't
him?
know.
You don't?
I was regularly engaging with him for like 2 years through the pandemic, and I thought he was a fascinating person. And I know what he did, and I told him I would never disclose actually what happened during the pandemic. But his returns during the pandemic, which were not included in Unknown Market Wizards, were phenomenal. That they were better than mine. And for whatever reason, he was the only investor. I think I want to say he was the only investor in Unknown Market Wizards that when Jack went back to all of us and said, "Hey, I want to re-audit you for my new edition," because he did a softback version after the
Mhm.
pandemic, and he wrote like a chapter like updating how each of us have done. For whatever reason, he did not engage with Jack on that, but I don't know why. I know he's a really private person, very private, and he does not want the whole world. Like he almost didn't do that book. So, but that said, I also know that he was knee deep in the electrification sector, which fell apart. So I'm also a little concerned that he had a bad year after he had the greatest year of all time. Like it was
Yeah.
crazy, guys. Like the numbers that he put up were so insane. It completely blew my mind. I was like, I could never do that. I could never do what you just did. And then I'm a little concerned that it maybe fell apart on him, and maybe he just wants some time alone while he rebuilds. The guy is wicked smart. I'm sure he's going to come back in a very big way. He's not afraid to take risk, man. Not afraid at all.
All right, another question from the audience. Baby Stonks wants to know, Chris, are you still on full margin, or are you being cautious for a stock market correction?
So I am heavily margined out right now. Again, I'm like, I want to say I'm like 75%
Yeah, you're not
margin,
100%.
80. I'm between 70 and 80% margin. I didn't think I was, and I checked it last week. I was like, wow, how did that happen? Maybe it was just like, oh, I added some Palantir, and I'm like, so I do. No, I'm not positioned for a stock market crash. I'm not. But that could change at any moment in time. So we'll see.
I'm not margined. I actually sold some of my longer term holdings, just a small portion, so that I could buy more Palantir. But I did not go into margin for that.
Yeah, I probably should. Maybe I should probably check my account. Maybe sell a few things. It's a little irresponsible of me right now to be that heavy in margin. Any other questions here? Oh, you know who else I had lunch with this week?
No.
This is crazy, guys. I sat right next to him, Steve Forbes. It was just 5 of us having lunch. It was John Carmack, Steve Forbes.
I think I got invited to that, but I didn't respond to the.
Could you how do you not go to that lunch, Jordan?
Well, I didn't realize what it was, and I don't check my email
You
that
got
much.
spam
I was
invite?
like, oh,
Dude,
I feel bad now.
I'm gonna. I looked over. I looked over at Steve Forbes. He's literally 1 inch from me. I have a photo. I'll share it with you guys. And I said, I'm about to cry. Right, like you don't realize how big of a money nerd kid I was. I've been watching you my whole life, and I can't believe this is happening right now. And we talked about crypto. Like I got to talk about. I talked to Steve Forbes about humanoids and crypto. And we had a long conversation about crypto, the election. It was one of those magical lunches where this guy is so old, but so wicked quick still and smart. He's so quick. His mind, like I was blown away. Like how
So what's bottom line his take on crypto for us?
so we were everyone at the table asked me my take on crypto, and I said the same thing I always say, which is, $85 trillion of wealth transfer going from old people to young people who are all going to put a lot of them are going to put a small percentage of their net worth into crypto when that wealth transfer happens, right? And I was talking about how there are so few gold bugs, and all the gold bugs back in the day are all weird guys. And then people looked at Steve because I guess he was I forgot he was a little bit of a gold bug. I call them, they're all weird old guys, and he's right here, my idol, right?
You got an actual weird old guy sitting right next to you.
And so I looked at his face, and he was just like, I was like, I've been weird my whole life. Like I'm just saying, like it is what it is, man. Like the gold bugs were all weird guys. Like, come on, right? You know what I'm saying, right? And he laughed, but his thesis on crypto, because we all agreed that there are 2 risks to crypto long term. Risk number 1 is that at some point it would get hacked or be at risk of getting hacked due to some type of future AI, supercomputer computing,
Yeah.
right? The other risk would be government regulation, and that's where Steve had a lot to say. And his thought was that as long as crypto does not become a currency that's like actively utilized in the economy, that it wouldn't be perceived as much of a threat. But if it ever kind of crosses that barrier and becomes the threat, that's when you're more likely to see a heavier hand in regulation. I think the smartest thing that he said was that they wouldn't necessarily ban it outright, but they would make it very difficult. So they would say, hey, you can't use crypto to do this. You can't use crypto to pay taxes. You can't use and when he got done with all of the kind of boundaries that they would set, it would make it very difficult for crypto, right? To kind of exist for
No utility, but more just a store of, like a gold brick sitting in a vault. It's just a digit sitting in your crypto wallet.
So did he say specifically that you wouldn't be able to milk cats anymore?
we didn't talk about NFTs. We didn't
Or-
talk about NFTs. I didn't go that far.
Or trade wool or whatever else you did.
So there is a new short-term crypto thesis that I think is worthy of a moment in time, just some thought, which is this FTX. I think it's like, how much is money is going back in the next 2 weeks to investors? Like 100. It's some obscene amount of money. Over 100 bill. Is it over 100 billion? It's a crazy amount of money.
I don't know, but it's going directly back to account holders who lost money on the FTX platform, which could
cash.
potentially be a big boost for all that money just going right back into crypto. Although my question is, what is that money in now? Is it in just dollars in a bank account and a check is coming in the mail, or is it in a dollar-based crypto coin, or is it in something else that?
Okay, here it is, Dave. A U.S. court has ordered bankruptcy cryptocurrency exchange FTX to pay $12.7 billion in relief to its customers. So
12.7 billion. So 6 billion of that goes to the attorneys. 6 billion left.
there's no way. They had to get capped on that. They had to get capped.
What happened to that guy?
I think he's in prison still, right?
I saw that
SBF?
he's in with Diddy, same area, same prison. He's like literally
that would
like
make
sharing,
sense.
He
The high
should
Doesn't
profile
make any
prison.
sense at all. Those are like two totally different crimes.
High profile. That's all.
Well,
For
I
security,
get that,
added security because they're well-known people.
Right.
Yeah. All right, guys. I haven't had my morning coffee yet. And I know, Dave, you hate it when we go long.
It's noon.
No, we're already at an hour. We've already gone long. We didn't. Okay. I would like everyone on the chat right now who's still stuck around to the end to tell me if, I don't know if you watched our older shows, like back during the pandemic before we went on the air, we just went on the air and talked for a little bit. And then when the time hit and when we get enough likes, then we started doing the show. We're considering bringing that back or bringing back an after the show, like live stream to like keep the show short, but then give the true Dumb Money fans a little bit more time with us. So
yeah, because nobody wants to watch, like, I don't want to say nobody, but very few people want to watch a 1-hour show. Like a 25-minute show is way more digestible. So like maybe
that's still way too much. Like nobody,
I don't know,
like if you're scrolling through YouTube and you see a 25-minute video or a 7-minute video, which one are you going to watch if it's the same topic?
All right.
Watch the short one. So the shorter the better, and that's why we just want to be able to talk to you guys more and find a way to do it.
I'll watch a
10-hour show. We're not doing a 10-hour show, Nick, but we
I
appreciate
could definitely do. Someone put a comment on 2 episodes ago that was like an insult against me that was so true. Like I have to embrace it. And they said I was the king of endurance talking, and someone tweeted that. And then no, they tweeted. They said, oh, 15 minutes and 32 seconds in, that's a record. That's when Jordan says his first word due to Chris's endurance talking. And
There's
that's
like going to be a drinking game. Like how long until Jordan says something?
no, but like I read that tweet and I thought I'm such an asshole. Like I like what like
But
why do I
if we do the
that?
pre-show, then you get some of your endurance talking out before the show, and everybody can tune in. We stream it live, and then when we get to the point, when we get to either the top of the hour or when we get enough likes, then I just go into intro mode and I do my intro, and then we roll the show, and then we, after the fact, chop off that beginning so that when you're watching the replay, you don't have to sit through all of our chit chat.
I like it. I think we should do that because Dave, I agree. We're really hurting ourselves with these 1 hour shows, man. Oh, there are only a few people that have the level of attention to sit around for an hour and watch us. But like we
That's
need to
okay,
get back.
especially for the replay. And I think that we can. It gives you an incentive to watch live because the only time you'll be able to see the entire like nonsense is if you tune in live. Or should we just let the whole thing run? We'll put a countdown on the screen or something so you can fast forward if you want. We'll figure it out.
I have had people ask if we could do, how you can like mark certain points in the videos.
Yeah.
Like this is when they actually talk about ticker or whatever. And that way, if you're in a time crunch, you can just skip to whatever you want to see.
If any of our viewers wanted to make the time code list, send it to us.
Is that a lot of work?
I mean, you have to listen. You have to watch our whole show and then write down the times.
All you have to do is write down the times, though.
Yeah. You write like 0:00 intro, 0:45.
Actually, entering it into YouTube is not difficult. It's you just
Wait,
yeah. We
me-
basically copy and paste it as a description on the video, and then it chapters it for you.
Dave, you're telling me that AI can't do that yet?
AI can do it. AI can do it, but it's all the ones that I found are way too detailed, and we're kind of all over the board. We don't have like this is the section where we talk about
like
this
75 like time markers.
Yeah, it doesn't just pick like the 5 main topics we talked about. It just gives you like Chris went on this tangent, and then 12 seconds later, Chris went on this tangent.
Oh, well, yeah, that would be
maybe you could say, hey, AI, only pick out major themes and give me no more than 7 time codes. Maybe that would work.
Yeah.
But I think we need to have shorter replays, and we could even clip like the intro and put it out there, make it available as its own like standalone video that nobody watches. But the short clipped on topic conversation, I think, is more valuable to people than us doing what we're doing now.
By the if Chris was a villain, he'd be caught monologuing. Oh my God.
That's a good one. I like that.
It's great.
All right. I got to go, man. My dog is waiting for me.
That's it. We're Dumb Money. Make sure you come back because it's going to be a whole different format the next time you see us.
All right.
All right.
We make this.
Oh, wait. Did you have something to say?
I should say, like, our editor that edits our clips, what a hard job that is to have to watch this crap and like find 15 seconds.
He just lets AI do it. I bet. Wouldn't you?
No, I think they do a really good job of like finding like that expression at the beginning that says this is what I want to talk about, and then clipping together enough of it to make a whole video. They do a great job.
I do want to see more Jordan in the short clips, though. Editor,
there have been a few lately.
Yeah,
I just think he watches until he's got enough to fill out, which is generally Chris or Dave monologuing. And then by the time you get to me, he's already made his clip, and he's like, "Oh,
but then when we don't do a live show for like a couple of weeks, you can tell he's going deeper and trying to find like they do a really good job of like pulling out obscure little things because they need to make a new clip every day. And if we haven't made a show for 3 weeks, they're just like really diving deep on that last episode.
But he has gotten me a few times, so I appreciate it.
Yeah, let's get Jordan in the next one, please, Mr. Editor. Thank you.
Jordan is a silent type.
All right. Thanks, guys.
All right.
Bye.
That's it. And I'm going to hit the button again. It's not going away.
Hey, there are
I know. It's a good thing I didn't hit that button. You have one more thing to say.
Real quick. I'm working on another shoe trade next week. That's all I'm going to say, dude. That's all I'm going to say. See you next week.
That's it? For real?
Yeah. Well, I'll talk about it in Discord first.
Okay.
in the research channel.
Perfect.
Goodbye.
Dumbmoney.tv/Discord if you want to be a part of that. It's absolutely free. If anyone ever asks you for money, it is a scam.
But I'm only in the research channel, trade research. So
Okay.
goodbye.